You got your olive shirt on, too. Sorry. You have your olive shirt on also. Aha. Okay. So, okay, yes, right? Yeah, hi, Ivan. Who am I talking to there, Ivan? I'm talking to somebody online, right? Are we okay? We're good? Okay. Ivan, you should probably start the live stream. Oh, we're live? Okay, so I'm going to give it a minute before I People are getting quiet. Does that mean it's time to start? I don't know. All of a sudden, there's a kind of a hush all over the shul tonight. You are? Okay, thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Yai lai, yai lai, lai lai, yai lai, lai lai, lai lai lai, yai lai, yai lai, lai lai, yai lai, lai lai, yai lai, lai lai, lai lai lai, yai lai, lai lai, lai lai lai, lai lai lai, lai lai, lai lai lai, lai lai. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Shabbat Shalom. It's really great to see all of you here in the sanctuary tonight. I know I can't see all of you online, but I got to say that here in the sanctuary, there are people I have not seen in months. I mean, it's just great to have all of us together and to hear our voices singing together. How wonderful. Welcome also to those of you watching online. I'm glad that you chose to join us for Shabbat this evening. I hope it's a peaceful, restful, spiritually fulfilling worship service for you too. Those of you watching online, if you're not familiar with the way we do this, we have a prayer book online. You can open up the prayer book. It's on our website. Go to our website. Under virtual resources, you'll see a link for Mishkan Tefillah. That's our prayer book for Shabbat. And we're going to start our Shabbat worship this evening with candle lighting. Elise Maltz is going to light our Shabbat candles. And I invite you to turn to page 3.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our gods, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. Thanks, Elise. Page 14. I'm on a roll with the Psalms for Shabbat. There are 6 Psalms that are traditionally recited as the warm-up to the Shabbat service. We're really doing the warm-up now. And these 6 Psalms are Psalms 95 to 99 and Psalm 29. And last week I did one of them and sang a song from that psalm. I'm kind of like looking at each psalm and saying, what song do we get out of this particular psalm? And this is Psalm 96. Psalm 96 is one of what they call the Coronation Psalms. It's either about God coming into the temple and celebrating God taking up residence in the temple, or it might have been about the ark coming into the temple and being established in the temple. One way or another. What's Are you Psalm 97? Actually, I'm on Psalm 96. The Hebrew on Psalm 96 is on page 13. Thanks for asking. So if you want to look at the Hebrew, and the song comes from the Hebrew, it's not from the English. So the Hebrew's right there on page 13. That's Psalm 96. And then on page 14, you get the translation. And there you have all this fantastic poetry from the Second Temple period. And it's not just we who celebrate God coming into the temple. All nature seems to celebrate God coming into the temple, which seems like a fitting psalm for Shabbat Noach, which I'll be speaking about later, when we celebrate this saving of, we'll find out later. But here we have an image actually of, speaking of Noah, of the seas, the waters, the oceans. They're all jumping up and down in praise of God Look in the second paragraph. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth exult. Let the sea and all within it thunder. How's the sea going to celebrate God? What other way would it do it? It would be in this thunderous kind of tsunami. And in the Hebrew, if you back up, you'll see in the second paragraph, it says, Yisbachu hashamayim, let the heavens rejoice, v'tagel ha'aretz, let the earth be glad. Yiram hayamum lo'o, let the sea and everything in it exult. But the song that I want to sing with you is on page 13. It's the next line in that paragraph. The second paragraph, the third line in it, which is not just the seas, but let all the fields and the trees of the forest rejoice before God. Ya'alos dai b'chol asher bo, Ya'alos dai, ay 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 ay, Ya'alos dai b'chol asher bo, Ya'alos dai, ay 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 ay, as Yiradenu kol atzei ya'ar, as Yiradenu kol atzei. Kol atzei ya'ar ya'alos dai v'chol asher bo ya'alos dai ay 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 ya'alos dai v'chol asher bo ya'alos dai ay 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 as Yiradenu kol atzei ya'ar. As Yiradenu kol atzei ya'ar, as Yiradenu kol atzei ya'ar, as Yiradenu kol atzei ya'ar, ya'alos dai v'chol asher bo, ya'alos dai, ay 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 ay, ya'alos dai v'chol ay, 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 ay. I'd like to do some of the alternative prayers in this prayer book that we don't really choose to do very often. Traditionally, you begin the formal part of the service after the opening Psalms with a call to worship, Baruch Hu. This prayer book offers creative alternatives to all the traditional prayers. And so rather than do the traditional prayer this evening, I'd like to take a look at this creative alternative on page 29, which again touches on this nature theme. The bottom of page 29. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. Page 31. Let's read together at the top of the page. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. The second prayer after Baruch Hu is in the evening, Ahavat Olam, eternal love. In the morning, you recite a similar prayer, Ahava Rabbah, great love. Both are lead-ins to the Shema. And this setting for the theme of that prayer is actually an English setting in the back of the prayer book. So I'm using an alternative again. Page 373, you'll see the words of this English setting, open up our eyes, are really drawn directly from the morning version of this prayer. They're an adaptation of the morning version of the prayer before Shema. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. And we will know that you are one. Page 34. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Haed. Baruch Shem Kivod, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Haed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And after Shema, we sing Ve'ahavta, which is really just the second part of Shema. But again, I'm going to do an English setting for Ve'ahavta in the songbook, which is why we distributed the songbook this evening. It's on page 35. Love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, Page 39 in the prayer book. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Mi hamocha ba'eli badonai. Mi hamocha medar bakodesh. Mi hamocha ba'eli badonai. Mi hamocha medar bakodesh. Torah tehilo, Moshe velen. Torah tehilo, Moshe velen. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. B'nei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'elianu ve'ameru, Ze'elianu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Page 43. Let's read together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 45. A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind, a joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day, and eternity utters a day. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai. A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind, joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived. Some of you are attending our fall adult ed class called People of the Book. And in that class last night, we looked at the second stage of Jewish literature, Mishnah and Talmud. I gave a few selections, and one of the selections I chose was about prayer and how much do you really need to say, and do you have to say it all? Do you have to say it exactly the same way? Is it fixed? Can you make up your own? And of course, like everything else in the Talmud, the rabbis don't agree. So, they have different opinions about this. And one of the rabbis says, well, you got to say all the tefillah, all the prayers in the central part of the service. Another rabbi says, you know what? If you just say a condensed version that gets all the basic idea of it, you're fine. You have fulfilled your obligation. For Hebrew speakers, yotzei midei chovato. It's a technical term in Talmud. You did what you needed to do. What do you need to do to fulfill the obligation of prayer? All right, you know what? At least part of the rabbinic tradition was just get the themes. The words don't matter so much. How many doesn't matter so much. It's the idea that counts. That's one branch of the rabbinic tradition. Generally, we actually follow the other branch, which is say the words, or at least some form of the words. Well, this prayer book, like any traditional prayer book, includes both the traditional text of the Amidah, but it also includes a version that is an abridged Amidah. Now, my entire explanation of this means that it's taking longer for me to explain it than it would if we just read all the prayers. But I want to point it out because we never do this version, and it's beautiful. And this prayer book even has a creative version of the traditional Magen Avot V'Imahot, the condensed Amidah. Before we do that, I actually want to do the meditation that precedes the recitation of the Amidah. God, open my lips so that I could pray to you. It's on page 46, and I invite you to rise. Da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. Adonai, sifatai tivtach. Yagid Tehilatecha Adonai Sifatai Tivtach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. If you'd remain standing and turn to page 65. And there you see it says at the top, Magen Avot V'Imahot. It's actually the summary of all the themes of the Amidah. I'd like to read this responsively. I'm going to read a paragraph, and then I invite you to read a paragraph. Speak up so that the people online can hear you. All right? Let us praise Adonai, source of knowledge and light, from whom we draw wisdom and insight.
Let us savor the fullness of each and every day, and fill our souls with the treasures of Shabbat. And let us appreciate these distinctions, sacred from profane, charity from greed, purpose from thrift.
Let us affirm our covenant as God's people. Let us honor those who study Torah. Let us uphold the truth of ongoing revelation.
Let us celebrate the glory of our tradition and draw refreshment from the well springs of prayer. Let us respect tradition and encourage creativity.
And let us dress ourselves in the garments of God, compassion for the needy, embrace of the stranger, and then spread the canopy of peace over all the world. You may be seated. Let's pray silently. Page 62 in the middle of the page. Yehiyu leratzon, imrefi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Yehiyu leratzon, imrefi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'koali. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'koali. Yehiyu leratzon, imrefi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Yehiyu leratzon, imrefi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'koali. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'koali. Yehiyu leratzon, imrefi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Yehiyu leratzon, imrefi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'koali. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'koali. At this time, we ask for healing for members of our congregation and their loved ones who are ill. If you are praying for healing of body or healing of spirit for a loved one, I invite you to recite that person's name out loud as my eyes pass yours. To those whose names we have said out loud, we add those whom we hold in our hearts and all those that those of you watching online are praying for as well. We say, Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. We praise you, God, the source of healing. Let us say together, Amen. You could find Misha Berach on page 253. the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. This evening, I would like to explore this week's Torah portion with you, Parshat Noach, and what I think is the unseen dimension of a very familiar story. You see, the story of the flood is the undoing of creation. God has barely finished creation in last week's Torah portion, and humans have already mucked it up. And now God has to clean up the mess. God determines to wash off the world and start over. God arranges for a small crew of Noah's family and representatives of every species to be preserved in order to repopulate the world. Sounds like a science fiction movie. Indeed, this is creation take two. The author built in a number of parallels between the flood story and the Garden of Eden story, so that we would recognize that humanity was given a second chance. What are these parallels between the two stories? In the creation story, a space is made for the world by separating the waters above us from those below. The ancients believed that above the sky was a layer of water. That's kind of obvious because every now and then there are holes and the water comes through. And they believed that there was another layer beneath the earth, which is obvious also because if you dig down, every now and then you hit it. In the flood story, God brings back together these two layers of water. The text says, the fountains of the deep burst apart and the floodgates of the sky opened up. So what happens in creation to make space for us is reversed in the flood story. The Torah says that Adam lived 930 years. Now, you'd have to really do a lot of counting, but you can do it if you add up the lifespans of all of Adam's descendants. You will find that the first person born to his family after Adam died was Noah. Noah, then, is the second Adam, the second father of humanity. Adam has three sons. You thought he only had two. Adam has three sons. They're Cain, Abel, and Shet. One of the three is no good, Cain, which you know if you saw East of Eden, right? What's that? Yeah, no, I'm thinking of the actor, James Dean. Thank you, James Dean. There we go. Likewise, Noah has three sons, one of whom is no good. Noah and his family have barely settled down on dry land when Noah goes to work. He becomes a vintner. He must have lived in Livermore. And he invents wine. Before you know it, he is drunk. His son, Ham, sees his father naked and calls to his brothers to show them the sight. But Ham's brothers, Shem and Japheth, cover their eyes and refuse to look. As a result, Ham is cursed, as was Adam's son, Cain. Adam over here, reviewed all the animals and lived together peacefully with them. Noah repeats this act, counting all the species and acting as their caretaker. The story of Noah and the flood should be understood as the culmination of Jewish prehistory. That is, the Torah begins with stories that were universally known in the ancient world. Our creation story borrows elements from ancient Near Eastern mythology, even if those elements have been muted so that we don't immediately recognize them. God conquers the forces of chaos, defeats the primordial monsters, and sets the world aright. In the opening verses of Genesis, we read about a wind of God that hovers over the face of the deep. Al Panei Tahom. Tahom, the word for the sea, is also the Hebrew version of the Mesopotamian goddess associated with the sea, Tiamat. Tahom, Tiamat. When God unleashes the flood during the time of Noah, God releases the waters of Tahom, Nivka'u kol ma'anot Tahom, and shuts them back up again at the end of the flood. This act of defeating the primordial forces of nature was common to all ancient Near Eastern cultures. The Torah then starts with the stories that everybody knew. Yet it makes these stories Jewish in two ways. First, it turns them into ethical tales. There is nothing ethical about the Babylonian version of the flood story. It is, just like Greek mythology, simply another tale of fickle gods fighting with one another. But in Genesis, the flood is all about human wickedness and God's demand for justice. The other difference is that these universal myths are incorporated as the groundwork for telling the particular story of the Jewish people. They are prelude to the real story of the Torah, the story of how the Jewish people originated. Now, the place of creation and the flood in the Torah makes sense. These are key tales because they tell the story of how all humanity originated. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is creation story number one. When this divine experiment doesn't work, they are cast out of Eden to function on their own. 10 generations later, everything has gone to hell. So God has to clean up and start over again with a new family, Noah and his family. They then are creation story number two. But it turns out this universalistic experiment is destined to fail as well. And so 10 generations later, God decides to start over with creation number three. Only this time, God is going to work with one family to teach the rest of humanity how to live. That is the family of Abraham. Creation, 10 generations. Flood, 10 generations. Abraham. The author of the Torah has taken well-known myths and strung them together in intervals of 10 generations to give the whole storyline a unified structure. This is where we came from, the author seems to say, and this is why we are here. All of creation is now our responsibility. I love the flood story, and not because I think there's any historical basis for it. It is rather the way that we connect what it means to be Jewish with what it means to be human. If the Torah had begun with Abraham, as it logically should have, we would never have the lesson that all humanity is one family. And yet the flood story is the common possession of all humanity as it was in ancient times. It is then for us the foundation of why Abraham had to set out on his journey of faith, a journey that has changed human history. And we are still on that journey, and it all began this week in the Torah. Liz Suffet, VP of Adult Program, has some announcements for us. Let's hear what's coming up.
See if I can get the mask off without catching my earrings this time. Nope. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I am Liz Suffet, VP Adult Programs and Education. I have a longer than usual set of appreciations to give, which is really kind of a nice thing. Thank you, Rabbi Milder, for leading us in worship, and thanks to the congregants who helped lead the service. I would also like to thank our tech mensches for doing all the behind-the-scenes work for this service to be live-streamed. Yes. Hi. Thank you to Sahala, who provided Kiddush and Motzi this evening. While we aren't yet having our usual dessert feast, we do need people to sign up to help host, providing at least Kiddush and Motzi at our services. It is easy and straightforward. Contact Sahala, Bonnie in the office, or me for all the information. I'd like to thank all the many people who came out at various times in the last week to help dismantle the sukkah. We had it down and put away in near record time. And a huge thank you to everyone who donated to our High Holy Day food drive. We collected over $5,200 for the Alameda County Food Bank that provided for over 10,000 meals. Yay, yes. Tomorrow morning, Torah study will take place online at 9 a.m. The registration link is in the Once Around. Religious school will be meeting on its regular schedule this week. Adult ed programs are in full swing, but contact Rabbi Milder or myself if you have any questions. Sunday at 2 p.m., the Women's Rosh Chodesh group will be meeting at a congregant's home in Pleasanton to enjoy a program by one of our members, Zelda Cohn, on the KonMari process of tidying one's home. Please see the Once Around for registration and details. Next Friday at our family service at 7:30 p.m., we'll be celebrating the consecration of our kindergartners and other students who are beginning their Jewish study. It's a fun and meaningful evening, so please come. Okay, a few more things. Saturday the 23rd at 9 a.m., we are co-sponsoring a very special Torah study program, which you may have read about in the Rabbi's Weekly Message today. It will be facilitated by Rabbi Dr. Andrea Weiss, who is a leading Bible scholar and provost of the Hebrew Union College. Registration is required, but it's free. Children's choir is back. Please look at the Once Around for the date of the rehearsals, which will be on Wednesdays. The choir will be singing at the family service in December. During the weeks of, I'm almost through. During the weeks of October 21st through November 14th, Under One Tent and co-sponsored by us, CBE, will be hosting a series of online programs, films, streaming, and lectures entitled We Are the Jews. It is an exploration of Judaism and Jewish communities around the world. There are some great topics, including exploring Judaism through delis, stories of Jews in Morocco, India, and China, exploring music of Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews, and at least one lecture by Fred Rosenbaum. So please see the Once Around for that link. Some of those programs do require a small fee. Saturday the 30th at 7 p.m., the Young Adults group will be meeting on the courtyard for Havdalah, followed by socializing at Bottle Taps, which is right across the street. Again, please register via the link. And lastly, a plea for blood donations. There is a dire need for blood donations and bone marrow matching. Blood products are used in cancer treatments as well as all sorts of other medical and surgical situations. Speaking personally, neither Howard nor I can donate blood now, only money. But if you are eligible, please consider it on our behalf. It is safe and truly pretty easy. So details for all of this and all the rest of our programming can be found on the website and the Once Around. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Liz. That is so exciting. It is just unbelievable list of programs. Both what we've done and what we've got coming up. It's really, really exciting. So our service continues with Aleinu on page 282. I invite you to rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asani kagoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo samech elkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech, Malchei Hamlachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Notesh Shamayim V'Yosei Haaretz Umoshav Yikaro B'Shamayim Mima'al Ushchinatu Zo B'Gov Hei Miromi Hu Eloheinu Ein Od Emet Malkeinu Efezulato Kakatu betorato viadata yom v'ashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim b'shamayim imal ve'al ha'aretz mitachat einod. Page 287. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may be seated. Judaism teaches us the sacred duty of memory. On this Shabbat, we remember those members of our congregation and their loved ones who have died within the past 30 days. We observe Shloshim for Betty Naomi Plummer. And we remember those whose yahrzeit occurred during the past week. I invite those who are observing yahrzeit for the following to rise as I recite their names. Evelyn Berg, Beatrice Troy Goldman, Benjamin Carlton, Rose Karn, William Fred Marchuk, Edward Swart, Howard Uranowitz. And I invite those who are observing the first year of mourning to rise at this time. Zichronam livracha, may the memories of the righteous be a blessing. We rise as one congregation, united by memory and compassion, to praise God's name. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ba'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabba mevarach le'olam ul'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'halal shemei dekudishah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechamata. Ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Let us say together, Amen. Please be seated. Following the closing song, we're going to join together in Kiddush and Motzi, and it looks like we're set up in the back of the room. Am I right about that? Yeah. So tell you what, I'll relocate to the back of the room, and we can all pick up a cup of wine or grape juice, and we'll recite Kiddush together. So, closing song is Ein Kelohenu, page 322, and this is my favorite rocking melody for Ein Kelohenu. This is by cantor Lisa Levine. Ein Kelohenu, ein Adonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu. There is none like our God. There is none like our God. There is none like our God. Ein Kelohenu, oh, ein Kelohenu, ein Adonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu. Who is like our God? Who is like our God? Who is like our God? Eloheinu, oh, ein Kelohenu, ein Adonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu. Give thanks to our God. Give thanks to our God. Give thanks to our God. No del Eloheinu. Oh, ein Kelohenu, ein Adonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu. Sing praise to our God. Sing praise to our God. Sing praise to our God. Baruch Eloheinu. Oh, ein Kelohenu, ein Adonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu. You are our God. You are our God. You are our God. Atahu Eloheinu. Oh, ein Kelohenu, ein Adonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu. There is no God but you. Ein Kelohenu. Shabbat Shalom. Let's gather together in the back of the room.